All right, let's just jump right in. The word gnosis, right? When you hear it, your mind probably goes to, ancient secrets, mystical visions, all that stuff. But what if that's not the whole story? What if we've kind of missed the point, and the real story isn't about spirituality at all, but about structure?
Yeah, this one sentence, it really gets right to the heart of the matter. So let's just, take all our assumptions about mysticism and just leave them at the door for a minute. Because if we really want to get what these ancient thinkers were talking about, we've got to shift our perspective. We have to stop thinking about belief and start thinking about blueprints.
So what we're really looking at here is, well, it's a translation problem. These terms, gnosis, nous, they weren't some kind of religious buzzwords back then. Not at all. They were technical terms. We're talking about the language of Greek philosophy. This is stuff that guys like Plato and Aristotle were using centuries before Christianity to describe the mechanics of the mind. Things like cognition and intellection.
And that is the absolute key. You have to understand, when these early thinkers used this language, they were basically speaking the science of their day. It's no different from how we use words like neuroscience or systems theory right now. For them, logos, nous, gnosis, that was the lingo. It was the most precise vocabulary they had to describe the architecture of the mind and maybe even reality itself.
Okay, so this leads us to this really cool idea called systems archaeology. Now think about it like this. We're not digging in the dirt for old pottery or beliefs. No, we're digging for something else. We're trying to find what's called a coordinate transform. It's basically a way to map two different technical languages that, get this, are describing the exact same machine. It's like we're trying to build a Rosetta Stone, but not for languages, for knowledge itself.
And here it is. This is basically what that Rosetta Stone looks like in action. Just check out these parallels. It's kind of mind-blowing. The ancient idea of nous, well, that maps directly onto what we'd call a predictive model. It's how our mind interfaces with the world. And the Demiurge, that figure often painted as this, flawed creator god, it's a perfect match for the ego model. And Gnosis, the big one, that's just integrated cognition, a system that's coherent and firing on all cylinders. See, this isn't myth-making, this is systems modeling.
So, okay, this brings up a really big question, right? Are we just playing a translation game here, just swapping out old words for new ones? Or is all of this pointing to something way, way deeper? Something fundamental about reality itself?
And here's the kicker. It's not about two systems. It's one single underlying structure. A structure that just keeps showing up over and over and over again. It just expresses itself in different encodings, different languages, and across totally different scales. We're talking from the inner workings of your mind all the way out to the cosmos. Now, there's a fancy technical term for this idea. It's called recursive structural invariance. But don't let the name scare you. It's actually pretty simple. Let's just break it down. Recursive just means it repeats itself. Structural means we're talking about the pattern underneath, not the surface level stuff. And invariance, that just means it doesn't change. So you put it all together, it's the same structure repeating again and again at every single layer.
And look, this is not some fringe out there idea, not at all. It lives in a very, very serious technical neighborhood, so to speak. Concepts like recursion, scale invariance, self-similarity, fractal architecture. This is the bread and butter of modern physics, math, and complexity science. So what we're talking about is a really solid hypothesis, and it's grounded in principles we already know and use.
Okay, so if this whole idea is grounded in real science, just how far does it go? What are the implications? And they're profound. Because this one repeating pattern, it might not just be describing how our minds work. It could be the fundamental organizing principle of everything, of reality itself, showing up in the structure of our cultures, in ecosystems, and maybe even in the cosmos. So you can talk about this stuff in very technical terms, right? But you can also express it, more poetically. This quote here, it kind of rotates the whole idea into that more symbolic, mythic language. Reality is not built from objects. It is built from patterns that remember themselves. It's not just a pile of stuff. It's a process. It's a pattern that has a memory. And you know what? The ancients, they had their own language for this. They called it things like the great chain of being, or they used the metaphor of the hermetic mirror. They totally got that you could keep zooming in or keep zooming out, and you just keep finding the same essential architecture. It would just be, wearing a different body each time.
And when you think about it that way, suddenly that old philosophical joke, you know the one, it's turtles all the way down, it doesn't sound so silly anymore, does it? It's almost like a piece of folk poetry describing exactly this, a recursively structured universe, a universe built on a single pattern that just keeps on going.
All right, so let's bring all this back down to earth for a second. What's the point of all this? Look, the goal here is absolutely not to hand you some new belief system to adopt. That's not it at all. The point is to give you a new tool, a powerful new tool for thinking, a way to see connections and analyze ideas across fields that you thought were totally separate.
And we can even give this tool a name. Let's call it the structural isomorphism engine. Think of it as a learning device, a method that does something pretty remarkable. It lets you detect that repeating, unchanging architecture. It lets you translate between all these different languages. And, this is the cool part, it lets you see when two systems that look nothing alike on the surface are actually secretly describing the exact same mechanism. And it's a pretty straightforward process, really, just 3 steps. First, you learn to look past all the surface details, the specific stories or data, and you detect the underlying architecture. Second, you translate the different languages, whether it's myth, science, psychology, whatever, into a shared structural language. And then third, once you've done that, you can reveal the core mechanism that's running the show in all of them.
So what does this engine really help you see? It helps you see the one, that single underlying structure that connects, well, everything. All these different domains of knowledge, from ancient Gnosticism to modern neuroscience, and it does it without saying one is just the other. It doesn't reduce them, it unifies them. It reveals their shared, you could call it architectural DNA.
And this might be the most powerful idea of all. This tool, this way of thinking, it suggests a totally new way to look at truth itself. You know, we usually think of truth as a statement that matches a fact. The sky is blue. But what if there's another kind of truth? What if truth is also about recognizing the consistency of a structure, a pattern that repeats itself at every single scale of reality, a pattern that cannot change? That's a different kind of truth.
So I'll just leave you with this to think about. What changes for us if we start looking for truth not in all the shifting details on the surface, but in the unchanging architecture that holds all those details together? What if truth isn't something you find, but a pattern you learn to recognize? Something to chew on. Thanks for tuning in.